Is anyone excited for this game? Anyone? Steelers, Browns, sub 40 over under. I don't think there's one person excited for this game unless you're a Steelers or Browns fan. But hey, once again, we have $1 million up top, so there is money to be won, and I'll do my best to break it down for you guys. Welcome to my channel. My name is DK. Cover content for Draftkings and for Prize Picks. If you guys are looking for that more in-depth content, you can check out my Patreon link down below, where I go, again, very in-depth with DFS, as well as get some prize pick plays, which we swept the board on the main slate on Sunday. So hoping to keep that rolling after a tough week one for me. And so before we talk about players and their prices, what we can do, first I want to shout out a member of the Discord, took down the showdown last night, tied for first place with two others, I believe. And this was his only lineup. So one lineup, taking it down. Hurts captain with Goddard, Smith, Watkins, Irv Smith, who I mentioned as a viable tournament option because I thought there's a decent chance the snaps would increase. They did. He had a great game. And then Justin Jefferson was a bit of a letdown. But winning lineup, $53,000 to be exact. That is massive, massive win. So best part of my job is seeing the big wins like that. And yes, and then also Jake Kumro. So this is one that I got on yesterday, early in the day. I tweeted this out at 2:00. How I thought there was a good chance that Jake Kumro is going to be the wide receiver too if Gabe Davis is out, and literally no one. I watch a lot of content out there. No one mentioned Jake Kumro, right? The whole industry thought it was going to be McKenzie and Crowder. And, I thought there was a decent chance that Jake Kumro was going to be the wide receiver too. And he was. And he played like almost the entire game. Had a good game at the flatman price and outscored massive chalk McKenzie. And then Crowder got some ownership as well. So Jake Kumro come in at 2% ownership. And, I talked about this a lot. I was talking about him all day yesterday in the Discord, as well as in the Patreon live stream, how it's like, it's worth the risk at, he's projected for 1% ownership. I was like, you don't have to get too much to get over the field on Jake Kumro. I think this is a spot where the field is completely reading this wrong, and they were. And if it wasn't for Quez Watkins catching a long touchdown, Jake Kumro would have been like the best punt play. He was a flat man price. He went for 7 fancy points. And again, Josh Allen missed him on an easy pass. It would have had another catch at least. But yeah, taking it, looking into stuff like this is the stuff you have to do to win GPPs, right? Is to find little edges like this. It's pretty rare you're going to get an edge where, Jake Kumro, like last night, where Kumro played like the entire game and was like unowned, right? It's pretty rare that you get spots like that. So you have to hop on it. And he did very good at the flat min price, and could have done better if, all the stars can get benched and they just ran out the clock in the second half. But that's because the game was a massive, massive blowout. But yeah, Kumro finished the most snaps on the team, 53 snaps there, a wide receiver. So just wanted to mention that. And then let's go over my two lineups. So my first lineup, Jalen Hurts lineup did really, really well, finished about 160 fantasy points. What I was saying in Patreon was that I didn't want to get different by looking to one of the cheaper quarterbacks. It's like, I want to get different elsewhere. I'm not looking to Tannehill. I'm not looking to Kirk Cousins. Now, sure, they weren't super popular, but a quarter of the field played one of those two, and they were completely dead. I wanted to play either Hurts or Josh Allen, and obviously they both smashed. The other two quarterbacks were massive letdowns. This lineup, I did have Diggs. The running backs were all disappointing, right? There's no one that did good. McKenzie was fine. Again, he was 40% owned, where again, Kumro was 2%. Thielen, Goddard, and Smith. I like the bounce back there for Smith. He was a lot lower owned than I thought, only 28%. I thought he'd get much more ownership. And then I did eat the chalk in the Bills D. Yes, I hate myself for it. All right, I do. But they got there. And then this was my high stakes lineup. So faded Stephon Diggs in this one. So that basically just buried me, obviously. But I did play, again, 2% Jake Kumro, finished with 7 fantasy points, and could have done better, again, if the game stayed competitive. But pretty similar, right? Goddard, Smith for the Eagles. I did use Jefferson and Cook because I thought like very few people would play Cook and Jefferson together. Obviously, it didn't work out, but that was one where like I was getting contrarian, I thought, without getting stupid. It was just, again, you needed Stephon Diggs to cash. So 1 for 2. Unfortunately, this was, again, the lineup I entered in a high stakes, so I ended up losing money overall on DraftKings. But that is the recap of everything for yesterday. So let's talk about this one. Again, we have a 38.5 over under, and the Browns are currently 5-point favorites. We'll start it off with the Steelers. And at the top, we have Najee Harris at 9.8K. Does feel a bit overpriced. His snap counts have not been as great as we have seen in or last year, I should say. Last year, like Najee Harris just played the entire game. First couple weeks so far of the season, he's been in that like 60 to 70% of the snap range, which is not, ideal, especially for him at the price point. Now, he is going to be involved in the passing game for sure. But yeah, 37 of the 63 snaps. Again, last year he was playing like 90+% of the snaps. So that doesn't mean he's out of play. He's still like firmly in play here. Again, is involved in the passing game. But I don't think if this was Najee Harris last year, he would look a lot better. Najee Harris this year, where the snaps, decrease, doesn't look as good. Now, I was told that George Pickens was going to take over as the wide receiver 1 and was going to be the better wide receiver at the end of the year than Deontay Johnson, right? That's what I was told. Oh, wait. I said that. Yeah, I'm literally eating crow with that take right now of George Pickens being better than Deontay Johnson, because Pickens has literally done nothing so far the first 2 weeks. But in the preseason, let me just remind you, in the preseason, when we knew he was going to play 1 to 2 series, he was way overowned. 3 touchdowns for him, just smashing. No, yes, I'm not over that, okay? I hold grudges, just like I'm not over Travis Homer Monday night. He was 10% owned. And then the next day, plays the most amount of snaps. Next week, plays the most amount of snaps for the Seattle running backs. Has 4 catches for 33 yards. So no, I don't forget those things, all right? But yeah, Deontay Johnson, he's basically just been doing what he's been doing for the last couple of years. He's going to get double-digit targets. Very safe play at the top. Looks good if you have the salary. Again, Cleveland, obviously a solid defense, but Deontay Johnson, if you have the salary, looks pretty good. Mitch Trubisky's at 8.6, so hasn't looked great through 2 weeks. He's more of a game manager at quarterback, like not a quarterback that has a super high ceiling. I will say I don't think it's going to happen, but there's at least like a small possibility that if Pittsburgh really struggles early on, that they go to Kenny Pickett. So just like know that like there's a small chance that if Trubisky really struggles, he could get benched. Like, there's no guarantee Mitch Trubisky plays the entire game here if he really, really struggles. But I don't think that happens. I just wanted to mention it. And yeah, with Trubisky, I slightly prefer Trubisky to Jacoby Brissett, but obviously both quarterbacks don't have a super high ceiling. He is 8.6K, which is pretty cheap on a showdown slate. Pat Freiermuth is 7K, and he's been playing like the entire game. So with the Steelers, the positive with their offense is they basically just play like the same guys like the entire game. Like there's not a lot of teams that do that, but the Steelers are one of the few in the league that just like play their main guys and play them like the entire game. So you saw 56 of the 63 snaps for Pat Freiermuth, and obviously guys can look to in the red zone, 10 and 7 targets over the first couple of weeks. Pretty good option there in the mid-range for the salary. Chase Claypool playing in the slot, 6 targets back-to-back weeks. He's also playing a lot of snaps, 58 of the 63 snaps. So I think he looks pretty good. Might be a little bit easier to get to Claypool than Freiermuth, but Freiermuth has been getting more targets of late. And then, okay, so like, can you play a guy like Kenny Pickett in the middle maker and hope that Mitch Trubisky really struggles first 2-3 drives and gets benched, and then Kenny Pickett comes in? Yeah, if you want to like make like one lineup out of like 150 with Kenny Pickett, you can do that. But like I said, small chance that Trubisky gets benched. And then George Pickens, like I said, the guy that I've been eating crow on so far through the first couple weeks of the regular season, the opportunities have been there. 45 of the 63 snaps, but only 3 targets the first couple of weeks. Now, you're getting him at a relatively cheap price point for 4.8K. I'm not out on Pickens yet. He's made me look pretty dumb so far the first couple of weeks, but I still am a believer. I still think he's a talented wide receiver, and he's still having a lot of opportunities, and there's not a lot of value on this slate either. So I still have Anderson Pickens. The defenses. All right. So, as I mentioned, 38.5 over under. Absolutely disgusting. Two bad offenses, two run first teams. Yuck. What is this going to do? You're going to see high ownership at defense. Don't play the defense if they're going to be massive chalk. I'll just say that. And, you know, I'm sure you guys saw a lot of discussion about the Cincinnati defense, how they were, and I talked about this on Patreon, how they were not a good play in tournaments at their ownership. But, Adam Leviton said it best. He had let me see if I can find it. But basically, he has a lot of tweets. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Let's scroll back. But basically, the tweet was, okay, here we go. Never eat high ownership at defense. The variance and unpredictability of the position is massive. The correlation, this is key, the correlation between ownership and defense points is almost non-existent, 0.165. There's almost no correlation with ownership and defense. We know that, right? And that's what I'm talking about a lot with defense this year. Never want to play the chalk defense in tournaments. So, I have a good feeling with the over-under. So on paper, I think both defenses are solid plays, right? That's not factoring in ownership. Just looking at the defense, we'll talk about the Browns, who are a bit cheaper, but I think will be a lot more popular. On paper, I think they're solid plays. We have seen this in the past with showdowns in games that are projected to be low scoring. The defenses always go low owned. The Broncos D, right, were what? 40% in the game against Seattle. I have a feeling you could see, the Browns deal we'll talk about in a sec push for 40+% ownership, even 50%. We've seen this over the last couple of years. Defenses always go over owned in spots like this. So with that being said, I want none of the defenses if that is the case, if the ownership's going to be that high. Now, if the defenses are going to be like 20, 25% owned, then I'm totally fine playing them. They're going to be higher owned. I can almost guarantee it. So, I'll be, if that is the case, if the defenses are going to be relatively popular on the slate, I'll just full fade let the field play a super high owned defense. Moving on, Chris Boswell, 4K. I mentioned there's not a lot of great value, so the kickers are always solid values, in my opinion. Jaylen Warren's 3-2. The snaps have scaled back on Najee Harris. So Jaylen Warren has been working as the RB2. He's a decent pass catcher. Now, he hasn't done a ton, right? One target the first couple of weeks in each game, and then 3 and 4 carries. But 3.2K, I do think he's viable. He did see 23 snaps of the 63. So I think he's fine. Backup tight end, Zach Gentry is 3K. A little bit tougher to go there for me, at least. He played 19 snaps, only ran a route on 5. So that's pretty pricey for a backup tight end that only ran 5 routes. Again, we haven't seen any of Benny Snell, Derek Watts, the fullback, Gunnar Ozakowski or whatever his name, Gunnar. He played a few snaps in the backup slot wide receiver, but really hard to go there. Miles Boykin, again, him and Gunnar have played, I think they played like 8 snaps each. You saw 9 snaps for Gunnar, 8 snaps for Miles Boykin. Not much, right? And that's it. So unless something changes here for Pittsburgh, there's really very little value, which is why I mentioned that I like George Pickens, because there's not much value in the slate. I'm moving on to Cleveland. So Nick Chubb, I think, will be massive chalk on this slate. 5-point favorites. Just went for 3 touchdowns. And I get it, right? Game that they're favored, low total game. They're a run-first team. They're probably going to force-feed Nick Chubb. But once again, I think he'll probably be a bit over-owned. If we can take anything away from the Aaron Jones ownership on Sunday night, I think Nick Chubb's going to be pretty popular in this game. So I like Nick Chubb, but I do think he makes for an interesting fade in tournaments if he's going to be extremely popular at 12K. But again, him and Kareem Hunt will split the running back duties, right? It's a relatively even split. 36 carries for Chubb, 31 for Hunt. Sorry about that. But yeah, Chubb and Hunt, again, it's basically a split, and that's what we saw with Jones and Dillon, pretty even split. Chubb should be the guy that gets more of the early down work, not really very involved in the passing situations, where Kareem Hunt, more of the passing down back, won't get as much of the early down work, but also is a lot cheaper at 7.6 as opposed to 12K for Chubb. So Chubb will be massive chalk. I think he's a solid play, but in my opinion, might be a bit over-owned in the showdown slate. And then Amari Cooper is 9.4, so he's their clear wide receiver 1. Has had 6 and 10 targets over the first couple of weeks, which is not bad. So he's viable. Again, floor is definitely a bit lower on Amari Cooper, especially with Cleveland being a team that they do want to ground and pound the football. And then Jacoby Brissett, he's just there, right? They're both, him and Trubisky are both cheap. Neither really have a super high ceiling. We did see 43 yards on the ground, though, for Jacoby Brissett. I mean, he does have like a little bit of rushing upside. I still think that I would lean Trubisky over Brissett, but you can pretty easily get both quarterbacks in the showdown slate because they're not expensive. And then Hunt, 7.6. So for me, in tournaments, I would rather go to Kareem Hunt than Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt's also a lot easier to get to. We'll see what, again, ownership comes in on these two backs, but I prefer Kareem Hunt to Nick Chubb, point per dollar. And then we're scrolling down to the mid-range for Cleveland. Donovan Peoples-Jones is 5.4. So he had a big week 1, didn't do anything week 2, but still played 52 of the 67 snaps. So I think he's fine. Again, 11 targets week 1, 1 target week 2. I think both those are outliers. I think he's in some average kind of in that 5 to 6 target range, which again makes him playable. Now Cleveland tight end, this could get interesting here. So they played 3 tight ends last game. Jesse James, Harrison Bryant, and Njoku. Jesse James is out. Harrison Bryant is banged up and didn't practice on Monday. That leaves only David Njoku as the only tight end, right? They only played 3 guys. Only 3 guys were active: James, Bryant, and Njoku. So if Harrison Bryant's out too, I mean, David Njoku was already basically playing the entire game, right? He saw 63 of the 67 snaps. That's really, really good to see. Ran a route on 27 of those. I did have 5 targets. So I like Njoku in the mid-range. I think he's going to look even better if Harrison Bryant's out. And then we'll talk about what Cleveland would do at the backup tight end position, because Cleveland does like running 2 tight end sets a lot. So we'll talk about who they would possibly go to. There's a couple guys that have in the practice squad at the min price that could be potential punt plays here. Now, if Harrison Bryant does play, I think he's a fine option. 4 targets in the first couple weeks. He didn't play as much in Njoku, 31 snaps, so he is a lot riskier. And if he does play, I mean, I would just prefer Njoku at a similar price point. Cade York, we talked about how there's very little value. Both kickers look good. You guys know what I'm going to say here about the Browns defense. On paper, I like them. 3.8K, home defense. They're favored, right? They are 5-point favorites. They're going to be way over-owned on this slate. If I see the Browns D get to like 50% on this slate, I mean, good luck. That's all I'll say. So, if they're going to be pretty popular, I want absolutely none of chalk Browns defense. Wide receiver 3 for Cleveland has been David Bell, but it's not like he's been playing a ton. He played 20 snaps of the 67. You saw Demetric Felton, who's like more of a running back, but he lined up in the slot. He played 12 snaps, and Anthony Schwartz played 12 snaps. So, I mean, David Bell would be the guy that I would take the shot on. He said 1 target through 2 weeks. He's only 1.4K, but a viable dart throw. I prefer him to Schwartz, who for some reason Schwartz is more expensive. I prefer him to Felton, who is a little bit cheaper. David Bell of this range would probably be the guy I would go to. And Jerome Ford, I think, only played on special teams. And then I'll mention these backup tight ends, right? So if Bryant's out, and obviously we know Jesse James is already out, they're going to call up like one of these tight ends. Like Forrestall's on the practice squad. Whatever a Mitchell Payton is on the practice squad too. So like one of those tight ends at the flatman price could be in play here if Harrison Bryant doesn't play. We'll keep an eye on the depth chart and who would be the tight end too, but we'll monitor that throughout the week. If, for example, if like Forrestall is going to be the tight end too, you can roll the dice on him at the flatman price. So we'll keep an eye on Harrison Bryant news, as I said. And yeah, I think that's it. I don't think there's anyone else I want to mention here for Cleveland. So that's going to wrap it up for the video. Appreciate you guys watching. Again, if you do enjoy this, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Keep an eye out for future content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.